The girl who exposed a music legend. Chase Hendrix's voice cut through the Orpheum Theater. You there. The black girl in the back with the cheap uniform. Come up here now. 500 guests turned. 2 million viewers watched online. Zara Williams was 11 years old. Let's see if you can actually sing or if you're just taking up space. He leaned close, microphone off, but hers still on. Fail quietly, kid. What she did next didn't just prove him wrong, it ended everything he'd built on lies. 4 hours earlier, Zara lived in Compton with her mother and 2 younger brothers. Her mother was a nurse working night shifts, and money was always tight. But Zara had a gift. Perfect pitch. 1 in 10,000 people can identify any note just by hearing it. When Jefferson Elementary was selected for Chase Hendrix's charity gala, the whole school erupted. Chase was famous for his signature whistle register C6 at the end of Higher Ground, the note no one else could hit. 4 platinum albums, 2 Grammys, millions in endorsements. During soundcheck, Zara heard something that didn't make sense. When Chase reached for that famous high note, his voice cracked around A5, 2 full steps below where it should be. He stopped, frustrated. Bring the track up higher. I need more support. When he sang it again, the note was perfect. Too perfect. With her perfect pitch, Zara could hear the digital shimmer. That C6 wasn't coming from Chase's throat. It was a backing track. The moment of truth. Now, under the spotlight with Chase's hand gripping her shoulder, Zara understood. He knew she'd heard him at soundcheck. This wasn't about giving her a moment to shine. This was about making sure no one would believe her. The band started. Higher Ground. Zara's mouth went dry, but then she stopped. Mr. Hendrix, can you turn off the backing track, please? The theater went silent. Chase blinked. What? Can you turn it off? I want to sing it for real. The backing track is part of the arrangement, sweetheart. But you sang it without the track at soundcheck. Then can you sing it first? Show me how without the track. Chase's jaw tightened. You want me to audition for you? No, sir. I just want to see if you can actually hit the note. The theater erupted. Fine, Chase said through his teeth. Kill the backing track. All of it. Chase began strong, but as the melody climbed higher, his neck tensed. D5, E5, A5, then he reached for the C6. His voice cracked and broke around A sharp, a full step and a half below the target. You didn't hit it, Zara said quietly. My voice is tired, but on your album, you hit that note 27 times. I counted. I have perfect pitch. The note on your album is 1046.5 Hz, that's C6. What you just sang was 932 Hz. And the voice on the album doesn't sound like you. It's a woman's voice. I looked up your credits. It says Sophia Mitchell, additional vocals. The theater exploded. Chase stepped toward her. You need to stop talking right now. Why? Because I'm telling the truth. Then a voice came from the wings. Actually, she's right. Chase's sound engineer stepped into the light. I've been your engineer for 5 years, Chase. Every single show, I've played that backing track. You've never sung that note live. Not once. Zara's performance. Fine, Chase said, face red. You think you're so smart. You sing it right now. Zara closed her eyes and took a breath. When the band started again, she began soft, then her voice opened up, raw and honest. D5, E5, F5, her voice followed effortlessly. Then the bridge, G5, A5, B5. She shifted registers smoothly, and when she reached the C6, it came out clean. Pure, perfect. She held it for 4 seconds, then took it higher, D6, E6, F6, into territory Chase's backing track had never attempted. The theater erupted. 500 people on their feet, screaming. Yolanda Carter, a legendary R&B singer, stood crying. That is the best thing I've heard from an 11-year-old in my entire career. Marcus Webb, a music producer, stood up. I've been in this industry 30 years. I mixed that album. Zara's right. That's not Chase's voice. That's Sophia Mitchell. She was paid $2,000 and asked to sign an NDA. I stayed quiet for 3 decades, but I'm done protecting lies. Chase tried to speak but nothing came out. He looked at Zara with rage and fear. You're going to regret this. I will make sure you never work in this industry. Never. I'm 11 years old, Zara said steadily. I don't work in the industry. I just sing because I love it. And you can't take that away from me. But maybe someone should take it away from you. Within minutes, he was trending. Chase Hendricks exposed. Within 10 minutes, major blogs posted articles. Within 15, 3 sponsors issued statements reviewing their relationship with him. The aftermath. Chase's lawyer arrived at midnight with an offer. Sign a document saying Zara made false accusations, accept a $50,000 scholarship, or face a lawsuit. We'll sue you, your school, and your teacher. The school loses $500,000 in funding. No, Zara said, I'm not signing that. I didn't lie, he did. By morning, their apartment photos were online with cruel captions about poverty. But then Sophia Mitchell posted a video. I'm the voice Chase Hendricks has been selling as his own for 15 years. That little girl told the truth. Within hours, 7 more session singers came forward with proof. The narrative flipped completely. Chase filed a $10 million lawsuit against Zara, Sophia, Marcus, and Jefferson Elementary. But in court, Judge Patricia Moreno asked Chase directly, can you right now, in this courtroom, sing the note in question? Chase's face went pale. My voice isn't warmed up. You performed on demand for 15 years. Surely you can demonstrate it once. Chase's mouth opened, closed. No sound came out. Motion for injunction is denied. Mr. Hendricks, you don't get to drag an 11-year-old into court because she embarrassed you. Miss Williams, you're free to continue telling your story. That's called the First Amendment. The change. That night, 60 Minutes aired their investigation. 18 million watched. By the end, Chase's remaining sponsors withdrew, his label dropped him, and the Grammys announced they were reviewing his awards. Both Grammy awards were revoked, first time in history. Chase filed for bankruptcy. 15,000 ticket holders received $23 million in refunds. His comeback tour sold only 11% of tickets. But Zara's story sparked change. California passed Zara's law, requiring disclosure of pre-recorded vocals in live performances. The Recording Academy overhauled credit requirements. All vocalists must be named. A session musicians union formed with 2,000 members. 47 artists voluntarily updated credits to acknowledge uncredited singers. Sophia Mitchell released her own album and won a Grammy. Jefferson Elementary received $800,000 for their music program. Zara created Unbreakable Voices, a scholarship fund that provided 200 scholarships by year 3. 1 year after the gala, Zara performed at the Grammy Awards. When she hit that final sustained C6, 18,000 people rose to their feet, not because it was impossible, but because it was honest. The legacy. Today, session singers who'd been invisible for decades have their names in lights. Young artists have legal protection. And kids across the country sing unafraid because they watched an 11-year-old refuse to shrink. Zara didn't just hit a note Chase Hendricks couldn't reach. She hit a note the entire industry couldn't ignore. Your truth matters more than their comfort. Chase teaches online. Classes nobody remembers, awards revoked, mansions sold. And Zara, still just a kid who loves to sing, who does homework and argues with her brothers, who sometimes forgets she changed an industry. That's real courage. It doesn't need a spotlight or millions of dollars. Sometimes it doesn't roar or arrive with applause. Sometimes it sounds like a child saying, no, in a trembling voice, in a room where everyone else expects her to stay quiet, to agree, to fold. It's the kind of courage that doesn't look impressive from the outside, but changes everything once it appears. True courage often begins in moments that feel painfully small. A child standing her ground against an unfair rule. A quiet refusal when the world is pressuring compliance. A decision made not because it's safe, but because it's right. There are no cameras, no cheering crowds, just a pounding heart and a choice. And yet, those are the moments that shape lives far more than grand victories ever could. What makes this kind of courage remarkable is its cost. Children don't have power, money, or influence to fall back on. When they say no, they risk punishment, ridicule, isolation. They risk being labeled difficult or disrespectful. Still, some find the strength to draw a line anyway. Not because they're fearless, but because something inside them refuses to accept injustice as normal. That refusal, raw, unpolished, and deeply human, is the purest form of bravery. Society often teaches children to obey first and question later. We reward compliance and mistake silence for maturity. But courage doesn't grow in silence. It grows when a young person learns that their voice matters, even when it shakes. Especially when it shakes. A child who says, no, when everyone expects obedience is learning an early, powerful lesson. Self-respect is not negotiable. This kind of courage doesn't always win in the moment. Sometimes it's met with anger instead of understanding, consequences instead of praise. But it plants a seed. A seed that says, I am allowed to have boundaries. A seed that grows into confidence, integrity, and resilience. Years later, that same child may be the adult who speaks up in a boardroom, who refuses to stay silent in the face of cruelty, who protects others because she once learned to protect herself. We love stories of heroes who conquer impossible odds, but we overlook the quieter battles. The child who refuses to cheat even when everyone else is doing it. The girl who says, no, to being humiliated, touched, or dismissed. The student who challenges a teacher, not out of arrogance, but out of truth. These moments don't make headlines, yet they are acts of moral courage that ripple outward in ways we can't always see. Real courage doesn't announce itself. It doesn't ask for permission. It shows up in small bodies with big convictions, in soft voices carrying unbreakable resolve. It's found in the decision to stand rather than bend, to speak rather than disappear. And when a child learns that she can say, no, and survive, that she can say, no, and still be worthy, she gains something priceless. That's how change really begins. Not always with power or wealth, not with titles, influence, or applause, but with one brave refusal. One honest word spoken at the right moment. One child who chooses herself when the world expects her to surrender. These are the moments that history rarely records, yet they are the moments that quietly reshape it. A single refusal can disrupt a pattern that has gone unquestioned for years. It challenges the idea that, this is just how things are. When a child says, no, she isn't just protecting herself, she's exposing the injustice itself. Her courage forces others to confront what they've normalized, what they've ignored, what they've excused. Even if no one admits it out loud, something shifts the instant that line is drawn. What makes that moment powerful is not certainty, but conviction. The child doesn't know what will happen next. She doesn't know if she'll be believed, supported, or punished. All she knows is that surrender would cost her something deeper than comfort. It would cost her dignity. So she stands, not because she feels strong, but because she refuses to feel erased. That choice echoes far beyond that moment. It rewrites the story she tells herself about who she is. She learns that her voice has weight, that her boundaries matter, that even when she stands alone, she is still standing for something. And that lesson becomes a compass she will carry into every future decision, guiding her when the pressure is heavier and the stakes are higher. Change spreads quietly this way. One act of courage gives permission to another. Someone watching from the sidelines realizes they're not alone in their discomfort. Someone who stayed silent before finds the strength to speak next time. What began as a single word becomes a shared awakening, a slow but unstoppable shift in awareness. The world often celebrates loud victories, but real transformation is built on these quiet foundations. It's built on children who refuse to shrink, on individuals who won't trade their self-worth for acceptance, on moments where integrity wins even when no one is clapping. These are the sparks that ignite movements long before anyone calls them movements at all. And long after the moment has passed, its impact remains. Because a child who learns she can choose herself will grow into an adult who refuses to surrender her values. She will stand up for others the way she once stood up for herself. She will recognize injustice not as something inevitable, but as something that can, and must, be challenged. That is how change truly begins. Not with dominance, but with dignity. Not with control, but with courage. One refusal, one honest word, one child who, in choosing herself, teaches the world that surrender is never the only option.